Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Energy Institute Technical Webinar Series. Today's topic is the wind turbine system safety rules. I'd like to start by introducing myself and the speakers. My name is Andrea Pantoja. I'm a technical officer for the Energy Institute and Safety On. And I'm pleased to be joined by Mark Watson, Advisor Electrical Safety and Operations at Equinor, and also Chair of the Wind Operational Safety Rules Group. We're also joined by Amir Shazad, Electrical Operations Leader at Vestas, and Julie Brown, Head of Training Development at GWO. For the housekeeping of the webinar, please remember that this webinar is being recorded and will be available at the Energy Institute YouTube's page a few days after the event. All participants are muted except for myself and the presenters. And please do post questions in the Q&A function only. Don't post it in the chat as they won't be able to be picked up after for the Q&A session later. For today's agenda, we'll have Mark Watson doing an introduction of the wind turbine safety rules and now system safety rules governance, and a brief introduction as well of the work streams under the Wind Operational Safety Rules Group. Then Amir Shazad will present on the history, framework, and application of the rules. And then Julie Brown will present how the rules relate to the GWO's work. After this, we'll have a Q&A session moderated by Mark. Before I pass it to Mark, I would like to give a brief introduction of the Energy Institute. So the EI is a chartered professional membership body for people who work across the world of energy, working with and for 20,000 individuals and 200 companies in 120 countries. Ours is a unique, global, interdisciplinary community working to create a better energy future. Our purpose is to create a better energy future for our members and society by accelerating a just global transition to net zero. And against this purpose, we have three broader themes. The first is to attract and develop a diverse energy workforce. An example of this is the Wind Turbine Safety Rules 2020 course delivered through the EI Academy. We also convene expertise and evidence to inform energy decision making. For example, by hosting events like the International Energy Week hosted in February. And we also enable the industry to make energy safer and more efficient and lower carbon through our technical program and the delivery of good practice guidance, which are used globally. The Energy Institute is the independent custodian of technical innovation expertise for the global energy sector, helping to accelerate the energy transition through industry collaboration with regulators, academia, and wider stakeholders. Today, the Energy Institute is the home to a range of collaborative initiatives such as Safety On and G+, the Global Offshore Wind Health and Safety Organization. As you might be aware, hundreds of thousands are employed in the wind industry, and Safety On and G+ work together with the Energy Institute to bring them home safely. Safety On and G+ have 5 work main areas: the wind turbine safety rules, the reporting, developing good practice guidance, shared learning from incidents, and safe by design workshops. Members of both organizations set the general direction of the wind turbine safety rules, and now for the wind turbine system safety rules. And with that end, I'll pass it to you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Andrea. So I'm going to spend some time just to talk about the Wind Operational Safety Rules Group and how we're structured and what we are going to deliver. The Wind Operational Safety Rules Group is made up of a number of Tier 1 members, which all have individuals that feed into the group. And the reason for that is that we get a lot of competence within the group and some feedback for how the rules are being used for different companies on their operational sites. So when we're looking at developing the rules and updating the rules, we have some guidance from the Wind Operational Safety Rules Steering Committee. That's made up from members who work on behalf of some of the supporting members, and they're linked to the Safety On and the G+ Technical Advisory Committee and Leadership Boards. So they bring good ideas from the industry into the steering committee, which then help support our direction within the Operational Safety Rules Group. If we go to the next slide, some of the work streams that we are working in for the Wind Operational Safety Rules Group at this moment in time is obviously we've been working on the wind turbine system safety rules now for some time. That's gone through a development process, review, some trials and some updates. All of the members of the Wind Turbine Safety Rules Group have been involved in that. And that's where we've come to the point today where we'll be rolling out those rule sets today. What's linked to the development of those rules is also the development of a training package. So we will now be able to provide training on the rule set, similar to the core set of rules for the wind turbine safety rules. The system safety rules will be able to provide the same training as well. We have numerous support procedures which we also manage, and recently we've been working on support procedure 6, which is the kind of competency documents, roles and responsibilities. We have been reviewing that document and we'll be looking to publish that sometime this year. And the revision of the wind turbine safety rules revision, we're on version 4. So we are now reviewing that to roll out potentially version 5. We do this every 3 years, and that work is expected to be done and completed by the end of the year. The Safe System of Work group, some people may be involved in or have heard of. We held a number of workshops where we discussed what people in the industry felt was the best set of rules, the best way of working. And we documented all that information, and we're using that to try and help update and keep the wind turbine safety rules and the system safety rules up to date and modern and available to everybody in all areas in which they work. So there'll be a number of work groups in the OSRG helping to support that and look to do updates. We also have some other forums. So we have approved training providers. Now they are spaced out a number of different companies in different areas, and we have a 1-year meeting where we get everybody together to discuss any issues, any improvements, or any findings that we can help support on. We also have the Authorising Engineers Forum. We do that twice a year. It's where we invite the authorising engineers. It's a really great forum to have because we get all the information, some real good improvement proposals from the actual from the ground where people are using these rules day in, day out. So that's a great work stream. So if we move on to the next slide, and that's enough from me, and now we're going to hand over to Amir.
Thanks, Mark. Morning, all. I'm just going to start with giving a bit of history about the wind turbine safety rules before we delve deep into the wind turbine system safety rules. Next slide, please. So this concept of wind turbine safety rules was developed back in the days following concerns over non-uniform methods used when work or testing on turbines, mechanical, low voltage electrical systems. To address this problem, Renewable UK created or provided a platform, and Operational Safety Rules Group was formed. The organizations on the screens, owners, developers, and OEMs created first set of safety rules, wind turbine safety rules, in 2015. Next slide, please. 2005, the first edition was released, and ENA's model distribution safety rules was used as template. Since 2005 to 2015, a number of updates were made to the point where in 2005, third edition was released, which was based on, as I mentioned, feedback received through the application and usage of the rules in practice. In 2021, the fourth edition was released, which is still to date in place, as Mark mentioned just a minute ago. And this version is very stable in terms of addressing the current needs of the industry whilst working on or testing on turbines. The rules have also been independently audited, and example are at the bottom of the screen in 2013, where these rules have been deemed as industry best practice and have been deemed that the rules adequately address the main inherent dangers associated with installed electrical and mechanical equipment in turbines. Next slide, please. Just a high-level overview in terms of what the rules are and what this framework is all about. So the wind turbine safety rules provide a complete safe system of work, which is the framework, and they provide a set of what we call 8 support procedures. This framework allows companies to create their own management instructions, and the support procedures enable them to do that. The rules remain stable, but there is flexibility available in terms of their implementation for different organizations, depending on the size of the organizations and their geographic area of operation, voltage levels, and so forth. And I'll touch base on the voltage level in one of the slides later. It's important to mention that often wind turbine safety rules are deemed or perceived as European only, which is in reality no longer is the case, because these rules are being applied across Europe, US, and APAC. And as you can see on the screen, these rules, through the feedback of the operational safety rules group members, are enforced in multiple countries at this present of time. And to give you a bit of context, based on, again, the feedback received from the members, as of 2023, these rules are enforced and are applied over 50 gigawatt of installed capacity, which is such a phenomenal number. And therefore, it has been validated that the rules keep people safe, and they provide a comprehensive framework for the organization to help them to implement depending on their setup. Next slide, please. Moving on to the wind turbine system safety rules. These rules now cover both low voltage and high voltage apparatus within turbine, and therefore they eliminate the need for separate systems whilst working within the turbine. They help organizations to streamline their processes and therefore minimizes paperwork, saving time and resources. They've been built with in mind the latest turbine size, the higher 15 plus megawatt output that we have in force at this present time, and the increased amount of wind farms being installed today. And another important and a key element to mention that the system safety rules were developed with the input from various owners, OEMs, and service providers, and they have been validated through real life scenarios when they were being developed. Next slide, please. In the next few slides, I'll just give you a quick comparison at a very high level, the difference between the safety rules and the system safety rules. So on the left-hand side, you will see in blue color wind turbine safety rules, on the right, wind turbine system safety rules. So they've been designed in accordance with the IEC standards, i.e. the low voltage is defined within the rules as voltage up to and including 1000-volt AC and 1500-volt DC. And in the wind turbine system safety rules, the high voltage is anything above. Next slide, please. I briefly touch base on the support procedure and the flexibility that they provide to organizations. So we currently have 8 support procedures on the left-hand side, and moving on to the system safety rules, we have similar structure, similar setup, but with the addition of high voltage switching, earthing, and testing of high voltage apparatus. Next. Person in charge. So under wind turbine safety rules, we have what we call authorized technician, and they are person in charge and carry out worker testing in accordance with the approved written procedure. And on the right-hand side, we've broken down that level to what we call authorized technician level 1 and level 2. So the roles and responsibility under the level 1 authorized technician under the system safety rules remain similar to what we have on the left. Whereas with the addition of the high voltage, the level 2 authorized technician will have the ability to be in charge of worker testing where high voltage safety precautions are required to carry out that worker testing safely. And in terms of the safety document, we have approved written procedure under the wind turbine safety rules, and under the wind turbine system safety rules, what we have is HV approved written procedure, which I'll mention in one of the slides later. Next slide, please. Similar to the person in charge, authorized technician, as I mentioned just a few seconds ago, the person responsible for the creation and the approval of safety document called approved written procedure is authorizing engineer under the wind turbine safety rules. And on the right-hand side, under the wind turbine system safety rules, we have authorizing engineer level 1 and authorizing engineer level 2. The responsibilities for the level 1 remain same as we currently have under wind turbine safety rules, whereas the level 2s will have the ability to approve, create, approve, HV approved written procedure that will allow people to work or test under on high voltage equipment. One important element to mention that currently there is a limitation with regards to the implementation of the wind turbine system safety rules, which is that they can only be applied on single end feed system. In terms of the future expansion, it will of course be something that we will evaluate in the future, depending on the implementation and application and the feedback that we receive through our members. Next slide, please. Safety document under these two rule set. Approved written procedure is a document under wind turbine safety rules that we currently have. And on the other hand, we have HV approved written procedure, any worker testing that require high voltage isolation, safety precaution, that will require a HV approved written procedure, which will be led by authorized technician level 2, and the document will be created and approved by authorizing engineer level 2 here. The HV approved written procedure can have elements of both permit to work, as we often referred under the high voltage safety rules, as well as sanction for test. In terms of being a bit specific on the sanction for test, so the rules require that whenever a sanction for test element is a part of the HV approved written procedure, that work or testing part shall be completed before any transfer or surrender of the document, ensuring that the safety precautions removed, which is the circumventing earth during the sanctuary test, create a scenario which needs to be very carefully managed, and therefore it's a requirement that the full testing element needs to be completed before any requirement of surrendering is required. Next slide, please. And on this slide, bringing together all that framework and the support procedure that I mentioned, we have these 9 support procedures along with the rules on the left, which help organizations to create their management instructions, as well as creating other management instructions such as implementation of the rules, loss of safety documents, loss of keys, general safeties, and so forth. So this really helped the organization to create their safe system of work depending on the complexity, the size of their country, and the size of the organization, and the geographic area where they would like to implement their rules. And next slide, please. So this slide, we try to give you a visual illustration in terms of a various safe system of work in practice. Starting from the left-hand side, we have 3 separate rule set in use. We have wind turbine safety rules and owners HV safety rules within the turbine level, which naturally requires more planning efforts, and there are naturally more handovers involved. It leads to complex interface between owners HV and OEM safety rules, and thereby potentially create the high chances of delays or miscommunication. In the middle, we have 2 rule set in a single turbine. If you focus on it at a turbine level only, the HV interface is managed between the owner and the OEM. Naturally, it also requires duplicate process and documentation for worker testing within the turbine on high voltage equipment. And similar to the left, it increases coordination effort on site. And on the right-hand side, we have, at the turbine level, wind turbine system safety rules in force, which is one unified rule set inside the turbine. It creates only one clean boundary within the site HV network, which would require less admin, fewer interfaces, and clearer responsibilities. And therefore, naturally, will increase efficiencies and will enable organizations to have a consistent control over high voltage and low voltage work. And next is my last slide. Yeah, this is where I've got a few kind of questions and scenarios that we faced during the time of developing and testing these rules. So the first one is that will the wind turbine safety rules remain available after the system safety rules release? Yes, both rules will remain available for a period while the wind operational safety rules group reviews usage and feedback on the system safety rules. The next one is there a guidance document available with the system safety rules? No, not at this present time. However, any future availability will entirely depend on the application and the feedback that we receive. Next one is can the wind turbine safety rules and the system safety rules be implemented on a single turbine at the same time? No, this is not currently envisaged or designed, but at the same time, in theory, yeah, they can be applied, but it would require very careful planning and coordination whilst doing that. And the last one is in terms of the globalization of these rules. The WTSSR and the system safety rules define low voltage and high voltage in line with the IEC standards that I mentioned earlier, which differ in some countries, such as Japan and Taiwan. Does this limit their application to lower voltages in those countries? The answer is no. They are designed to the definitions as per the IEC standards, and therefore have been deemed safe to use at those voltages. And emphasize here is that provided that local laws, regulations, any training and certification requirements are met and formally documented in the company's appointment of persons management instructions. With that, I will hand you over to Julie.
Thank you, Amir. Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you to the Energy Institute for the invitation and this opportunity to contribute. So if we can go on to the first slide, please. So from the perspective of GWO, our role in this conversation is really quite specific. GWO doesn't create that operational safety rules, but we do, and we do not authorize work on those electrical systems. But what we do is support industry. We provide that global baseline of safety and technical training standards that prepare technicians to operate safely within these systems, such as the wind turbine safety rules. But today I'll briefly explain how GWO training aligns with these principles and how these two complement each other in supporting these safe turbine operations. So next slide, please. So as the industry continues to grow, we are seeing that increasingly complex operations and that workforce that is highly mobile across the projects and countries. And in that context, the electrical and the high voltage risk often concentrate at the operational interfaces between technicians, operators, and also the control systems. One of the areas where the confusion sometimes arises is that distinction between that training and that authorization. Completing a training course doesn't give or grant permission to operate or control electrical systems. That permission always sits with that formal safe systems of work framework that's defined by the duty holder. And I believe, honestly, clarifying these boundaries really helps reduce that risk and strengthens that safety culture across the industry. Next slide, please. So the wind turbine safety rules provide that formal operational framework that governs that safe electrical work with the turbines and associated systems and establish the clear roles and responsibilities. And so GWO will always take those rules and frameworks into account, such as when we're developing our standards. Next slide, please. So where does GWO actually fit in? We get asked this question quite a lot. GWO fits in this picture, for example, at the training and the competence preparation level. So our standards provide that global baseline of safety and technical training for those wind turbine technicians. They help establish that shared language across the global workforce, which is particularly important in this international industry like the wind energy. However, it is important to emphasize that GWO training does not replace that operational safety rules. The responsibility remains entirely with the wind turbine safety rules and the duty holders authorization process. Next slide, please. So in the specific case of high voltage training, for example, that was released last July, the aim was to prepare technicians to understand high voltage systems and how to operate safely around them. These include understanding how equipment is made safe and how electrical risks are controlled. But these activities are always performed within those documented safe systems of work, such as these safety rules framework here. So the high voltage training does not give someone permission to perform that high voltage switching or control work independently instead it prepares that technician so they can work safely within that operational procedures defined by that duty holder. Next slide, please. So it may be beneficial to explain how GWO standards are actually developed and how that operational rule frameworks, such as the wind turbine safety rules, are considered during that process. GWO standards are created through that industry working groups made up of developers, operators, OEMs, ISPs, training providers, and subject matter experts from across the sector. When these groups develop or update electrical or high voltage standards, one of the key principles is to ensure that the training supports that operational safety rule framework without ever replacing them. In practice, the working groups review the rules and the frameworks globally and work closely with associations such as Safety On and G+. For example, concepts such as isolation, proving dead, earthing, safe systems of work are trained in a way that is consistent with how these actions are controlled within that formal safe systems. Another important part is the development process and maintaining that clear boundary between training and operational authority. The working groups are subject matter experts who have direct operational experience, helping to ensure that that training reflects that real operational environment. And finally, the standards go through that multiple reviews with the industry members who are responsible for implementing those rule frameworks. So a useful way to look at the progression of competence is it typically begins with the training, followed by the supervised experience in the workplace, and finally individuals who receive that formal authorization under the duty holders training. So it provides that foundation. And you may be interested. We're working with these rules at the moment with our upcoming release of our next high voltage training, that installation and maintenance module. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for their ongoing support in that, and great products such as these really help frame the training. So next slide, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Amir. Great insight into the developments for the training and for the rule set. And we will now go on to some questions. We've had some questions in the Q&A session, so I will now read some of those out. Starting with you, Amir, we have a question. Will there be more training needed for on-site authorizing engineers?
I assume that this is being referred as the authorizing engineer level 2. If that's the case, yes, naturally, the relevant appropriate training will be required for the authorizing engineer level 2 so that they are familiar, competent with the high voltage equipment, and therefore can create and approve the HV approved return procedure. This will come down to authorization, the organizations to create their own training matrix and document and cover that within the support procedure 6 appointment of persons.
So a similar question has been asked, is an authorized engineer level 2 equivalent to a senior authorized person in the model distribution safety rules?
Yes, you could use that analogy. They will be equivalent to authorized person / senior authorized person, depending on various organizations that we have different roles and responsibility for both. But yeah, I would consider the authorized person / senior authorized person could be kind of an analogy you could use to compare the authorizing engineer level 2. And it actually goes for the authorized technician level 2 as well, because they will be the person in charge and they will be the one responsible for achieving safety from the system and applying safety precautions, i.e. high voltage switching.
Yes. So that brings us on to the type of training that we will be providing under the Energy Institute around this rule set. Julie's talked about how to become competent or have a path towards competence around HV training. But what will the Energy Institute training cover? Amir, I think this is the training package towards if we cover what the Energy Institute will provide training similar to the core course for the for the wind turbine safety rules.
Sorry, I got you. Yeah. Yes, there will be a wind turbine system safety rules core course, similar to what we have currently for the wind turbine safety rules. This has been designed in a modular arrangement whereby the prerequisite to the system safety rules part will be the wind turbine safety rules. Therefore, when you get to the system safety rules part, you are not going through the low voltage elements that we have currently around the wind turbine safety rules.
We have another question here. There's a cost to developing the control systems for the new roles. Has this been considered? I think we understand that this is a change of a rule set, and it's up to the company to see if they want to use the rule set on their asset and move the boundary and follow the system safety rules, not the wind turbine safety rules. And with that comes further training, further documentation, and updates to processes. We accept that is a change, and there's naturally a cost towards that, but we haven't. It's not really our role to consider how much this is going to cost for each company to adopt. Some will be easier than others. Some will have to start from scratch, but that's for the companies to assess.
That's right, Mark. Just to sort of chip in and add to that, yeah, that's purely down to the organizations, depending on the existing organization setup that they have concerning high voltage. And as far as the system safety rules is concerned, the coordination efforts in terms of allowing people to work on the worker testing is still the operation controller. Now, how an organization wishes to use that function and what additional approval checks they want to add is purely down to the organizations. And this is where there is a requirement in the support procedures for the companies to create their local management instructions and document that company specific approval and setup that they have.
I think we covered this next question in one of the slides, but I think it's interesting to go over it again. Is that will the wind turbine safety rules and the system safety rules be active at the same time?
Yes, I think this is one of the questions that I had, that can they be used on a single turbine at the same time? So I did say no, we don't envisage, but however, in practically, yes, in theory, you can do that. You'll just have to have your side boundary document to clearly document the interface where one rule application start and stop. So yeah, and in theory, yes, it can be done, but we don't envisage this to be a normal practice.
No, good. So there's a question here. Is there a subcategory for authorised techs who do not work under live conditions outside the ROM procedure, e.g. no fault finding? This is a similar one that we've discussed previously around, can you have a one of the HV AWPs that has a sanction for test section on it? Can every single authorised tech 2 work under that AWP? So I think this is a similar question to that.
Yes, it's down to organizations. Like currently under the wind turbine safety rules, we do have different levels of authorized technicians. We often have limited AETs that we know that category do exist, and therefore it's subject to organization how they wish to design those categories within their organization. providing that they clearly document those requirements in terms of the training and competence requirements of those different roles, and clearly document them in their support procedure, appointment of persons, and therefore naturally provide that clear overview to the operation controller, who could then understand the limitations concerning approved written procedure, who can be in charge of them, so that a person who's not competent to work on a specific AWP is not being granted control to work on the turbine or work testing on that turbine on that AWP.
Good. We have under the wind turbine system safety rules framework, when HV switching is required on a turbine integrated HV equipment, does the switching instruction still originate from the HV control engineer, or is that responsibility transferred to the wind turbine system level 2 authorizing engineer with the turbine? So I think this is about understanding the differences between how you would work on a normal HV set of rules to how you would work under the wind turbine system safety rules around developing your documentation. So if you just explain a little bit about the differences there around the switching schedule compared to the HV AWP.
Yes, sure. Thanks, Mark. The HV AWP will have both a set of low voltage and high voltage isolations in one section, which is referred as point of isolation. So your effectively switching schedule, HV switching schedule, will be part of your HV AWP for the worker testing under the scope of the and the application of the wind turbine system safety rules. In terms of the requirement to also inform the HV control engineer for that switching to take place, as I mentioned earlier, it's purely down to the organization what level of control they wish to have in place at their site, whether they want to put a requirement that the HV control center is also informed and consulted for consent for HV switching. If that's the case, then yeah, document that in your support procedure. So yeah, it will differ from organization to organization, the complexity, the size of the organization, and the maturity of their high voltage organization.
Thank you very much. We have a question for you, Julie. How did the Global Wind Organization ensure alignment with the new wind turbine safety rules without creating conflicts across different regions?
That's a really good question, actually. So I would say that we ensure alignment by working with the industry working groups, operators, electrical safety experts. We make sure that we also work, obviously, with safety on G+. The key approach for GWO, however, is to keep the training principle based. So rather than tied to one specific rule framework, that way we keep the standards to reflect those common safety principles, such as safe systems of work, isolation control, defined roles, without conflicting regional or company specific rules. And this allows those technicians trained under the GWO standards to learn and operate within those local wind turbine safety rules or safe systems of work used by the duty holder on the site.
And just as another question, what is the level of uptake from the industry for around your HV courses? How busy has it been since you've rolled those out?
Yeah, really positive, actually. The GWO high voltage standard obviously is still relatively new. It takes training providers time to get it on audited, etc. But the industry has shown that the interest is incredibly strong. We had a charter of support by leading members in the industry. And that's why that standard was developed, because there was a clear demand from those industry leaders. So really positive. We're looking at it ramping up over this next 6 months, certainly. but really positive compared to other standards also that have been released by GWA.
Thank you very much. I think this is quite a topical question. Will it become mandatory for companies who currently work under the wind turbine safety rules to move to the wind turbine system safety rules?
No, it's not mandatory. It's purely down to organizations, their contractual obligations that they have as being the service provider, if that's the case. So no, there's no mandatory requirements. It's a decision, an option available to organization. If they wish to do so, then yeah, they can do that, adopt that. So yeah.
We talk about standards, and I know you mentioned some regulations and standards in your presentation, Amir, but there's terminology used in some of the standards, EN 5110, which I know we have currently reviewed previously reviewed the wind turbine safety rules against the update towards EN 5110. They talk about lots of roles and responsibilities within that document, one being authorised persons and control persons and others. How have we kind of looked to align that within the wind turbine system safety rules?
Very good question. We have not aligned them to any of those standards as far as the roles names are concerned. And it's a difficult one in a way that we want to make these rules as a global set of safety rules that can be applied across any parts of the world, and therefore it's very difficult to be specific to one particular standard. So the system safety rules evolution and the roles have been kept same as the current wind turbine safety rules. As I mentioned, authorized technician, authorizing engineer, operation controller. So no, they're not aligned to any particular standard as such. Purely, if we just focus on the roles names only. However, as you just touched base, Mark, we have done a gap analysis of the fourth edition with the EN 50110 and the American OSHA and FPA 70 requirements as well lately. And on the technical front, yeah, we tried to incorporate some of the changes required, which we did when we released the fourth edition last time, and we did make some changes to address some of the things that we found room for improvement, if I call that. Yeah, currently no, they're not according to any particular standard as such.
Okay, good. We talked about how to gain competence a little bit for you both here. How will a technician get their competence under the wind turbine system safety rules? So how will they gain from being a, let's say, authorized technician 1 to an authorized technician 2? So taking that leap from the LV way to the HV ways. How are they going to gain that competence? How is that expected to see that process?
If I take that first, Julian, I'll hand over to you. It's the same requirement that we have currently with wind turbine safety rules, authorized technician, authorizing engineer. It's a requirement for organization to determine what theoretical, practical, and competence requirements are required for those roles, depending on the product, the complexity of the product, and have that documented in training matrix and define how you deem those people competent through an assessment within your organization and in support procedure 6. So similar requirements are for the authorized technician level 2 and the authorizing engineer level 2 as well, which is people need to be familiar, trained, competent with the high voltage equipment that they will be dealing with after their authorization, and also how you assess them and deem them competent, that they are competent to work and fulfill the roles and responsibilities of those additional level 2 roles.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to end up saying the same thing, but in a slightly different way. For us, the competence is built on that combination of training, the practical experience, and the formal authorization. So, from GWOs, the training such as GWO standards provide that foundational knowledge, the understanding of hazards and equipment, safe behaviours. But that knowledge is then developed through the supervised workplace experience, and then that competence is confirmed through the assessment of the authorization by that duty holder, so they can perform those site safe systems of work.
Good. There's a few questions around some competencies that are linked towards the wind turbine safety rules, and I think this is a good time to make a comment about how we developed the wind turbine system safety rules. So the wind turbine system safety rules were developed to be not too dissimilar to the wind turbine safety rules. So the backbone of the wind turbine safety rules, all the information is how they work now is exactly the same in the system safety rules. What we have then added is the ability to be able to move the boundary down and work on the high voltage plant and apparatus. So then we've added the kind of extra competencies. But what was really important when this work started and we start kicking off the work groups within the operational safety rules group was that we have a process which everybody is familiar with. People are using it day in, day out. Lots and lots of industries, lots and lots of companies are using the wind turbine safety rules. So when we developed the wind turbine system safety rules, we wanted to make sure that they were aligned and that you could just transition from one to the other if you needed to. So with roles and responsibilities that exist in the wind turbine safety rules now, competent techs, the operational controller, those type of roles, they are the same in the wind turbine system safety rules, and they still exist. So it's you could see how a site that's gone from wind turbine safety rules to system wants to go to system safety rules can easily transition with the competence and experience they've already got, with just that further experience and just the further training on the new rule set with the added bits in. So that's some questions answered around what are the differences, and roles and responsibilities. Are they still in the system safety rules? Yes, they are. But there is a question around boundaries I think we should cover, because I've probably a question that will get asked quite a lot. So when we work for the wind turbine safety rules, and then you have the HV owner operator, you have the boundary process. How does that cross-boundary process work with the system safety rules? Yeah.
So with the system safety rules, that boundary interface would be with the site high voltage or E&M safety rules, and then there will be the requirement will be for the authorizing engineer level 2 to coordinate with the boundary safety rules approved authorized person, senior authorized person, control engineer, whatever may be the requirement, to coordinate and speak with each other, consult in terms of the isolations required and the sequence, and then create an authorized HV approved written procedure. Similarly, the authorized technician level 2 to coordinate with the BSR approved person with regards to coordination if safety precautions are required from the BSR boundary safety rules in order to allow worker testing under the wind turbine system safety rules, and vice versa. So yeah, the interface is directly with the site HV safety rules. And in terms of within the turbine, the system which is under the system safety rules, low voltage and high voltage, the management of those low voltage and high voltage interfaces is the responsibility of the authorizing engineer level 2 to put those safety precautions on HV approved written procedure, and the authorized technician level 2 will have the ability, due to their competence and authorization, to carry out switching across both low voltage and high voltage within that system under the system safety rules.
Good. So we've got, given what's been said, under the wind turbine system safety rules, the responsibilities are not clear. These can vary from each organisation. Therefore, there doesn't seem to be alignment. Will this group ensure competency is being assessed in the same level throughout the industry? The roles and responsibilities under the wind turbine system safety rules are very clear, aren't they, Amir? That they're well documented, and under each role and responsibilities, there is some clear expectations for the responsibilities, and exactly the same as what's written in the wind turbine safety rules. When it comes to competence, it'll be expected that the organisations will still have to do the authorisation process, whatever they are covering in their company, and how they are trained and become competent realistically is up to the company that they're working for, isn't it? So we will provide training core course on the rule set, which everyone will have to sit. That'll be a prerequisite. And then how they gain their HV competence will be defined in a local management instruction for the company's expectations. So it might be that they go on the GWO HV training course, and we also understand that there is this transition period. So it might be the fact that the who wants to be an authorized Tech 2 would shadow an SAP for a while, with maybe the documentation to understand how it's done. But the fact is that they have some hand-on experience, sit some training, and then go through an authorization process. But fundamentally, that is up to the company who are employing that individual to do the work. So there is alignment. There is alignment in the industry around training that's available to be able to get competent to authorized person or senior authorized person to work under to work as an authorized Tech 2 and work under the HVAWPs. So I wouldn't expect that there would be much differences from one person to the other around the training that they've had to become competent under these levels. Exactly the same as we see with the authorized Tech 1s. So it should be structured as well as we can detail it in the rule set. There's a question around permit holders returning safety documents and keeping them under safe custody. How's that managed under the AWP process, Amir?
Same as the WTSR. So the responsibility of retaining the HVAWP is with authorized technician level 2. They're in charge of the work, applying safety precautions, locking them, including retention and safekeeping of the HVAWP whilst the work is being performed. In terms of when there are times to surrender the HVAWP, then it's a similar process that we have currently. Organizations to define their safe custody according to their management instruction, and then authorized technician level 2 to follow those local procedure that they have in place. And all of this is very well defined in the rules, the process, the requirements, both for the organization as well as the various roles that we have under the system safety rules.
How do you see the competence transfer, Amir? Because a lot of companies will have kind of limited SAPs that would be authorized under a different set of rules. And they would be currently doing the work that we're now suggesting that we move the boundary down and the wind turbine system safety rules would cover. How do you see the transition between the people that are already competent as SAPs into being competent as authorised Tech 2s or authorised engineer 2s?
Yeah, the senior authorized person, as we kind of a general role that we have in the industry, their competence will be more or less around the authorizing engineer level 2 as well as the authorized technician level 2, providing they fulfill all the requirements as per their roles and responsibilities. So this is kind of very high level sort of general comment, so to speak. We do have certain organizations that have kind of a limited scope, like WTG, SAP or WTG AP, that they're limited to only carry out switching on a single end feed switching. And this is where the WTSSR fits in and comes in quite well. That the competencies of those roles should be equal to the requirement that we have under the wind turbine system safety rules. And again, emphasizing this is just a high level comment. The specific details will be down to the organization to review their existing competencies and roles and responsibilities, evaluate that and compare with what we have under the wind turbine system safety rules, and ensure that there isn't a mismatch or there isn't any additional requirement that they need to fulfill before considering kind of a straight transition or a parallel straight equivalent from one side SAP to directly to an AT level 2 or AE level 2.
They would have to sit the core course for the system safety rules as a minimum anyway, wouldn't they? Because they'd be moving from one rule set to another.
That's right. Yeah, they will have to have that course, that training to be able to understand, how these rules are applied, what are the limitations, and what are the interfaces and communication sort of requirements, approval process, and so forth. So yeah, they really need to familiarize themselves through this core course, as well as some exposure practically out there whilst these rules are in force or in motion.
Good. There's a couple of questions around the operational controller. Will the role of operational controller change, and will there be further competency needed for the operational controllers working under the system safety rules?
Good question. So currently the operation controller role is similar, whereby they are in control of the control coordination, ensuring that the authorized technician requesting the transfer control are approved for that site, for that asset. The safety document HVAWP is approved and valid, and the requester is competent to request transfer control and lead a working party under that safety document. So no changes as far as that side is concerned. So it's the responsibility of the organization to ensure that a robust system is in place, whereby that information is up to date, readily available to the operation controller. As I mentioned earlier, however, if an organization chooses to link that operation controller role with the HV control center, HV control person, control engineer, then they need to define that process in a local management instruction, and therefore create a local training, and so that the operation controller at that site is familiar with that process. And this is not something different. Currently, still under the wind turbine safety rules, there is a requirement for the organizations to have training module around their local management instructions. So short answer is no change as far as the role is concerned. They have the same responsibility, but it's just a matter of how the existing well-established organization that have HV control centers and organization, how they want to link the wind turbine system safety rules with that setup. That come down to the local administration and associated training.
Yeah. Good, thank you very much. I think we've pretty much answered the majority of the questions, one way or the other. I think that, yeah, thank you very much, Amir and Julie, for answering the questions. It's always, we had quite a lot of questions. There's always some good engagement. And thank you very much for everybody that has provided the questions. For those of you who didn't get a chance to ask any questions, or your question didn't get asked, or you think of one later on, then the email address here on the screen, if you email your questions or queries or concerns to that email address, that will be picked up by the Energy Institute and passed on to us, and we'll be able to answer it and provide you some feedback. Or if you want to ask any questions about the wind turbine safety rules, or the wind turbine system safety rules, or the training that's provided, then you can ask the questions via that email address. There will be a link in the chat to the documentation. So the wind turbine system safety rules has been published today. So it is now available on the Energy Institute website. So it's available for people to read, to look into, to take towards their organizations and discuss whether they would like to move from the wind turbine safety rules to the system safety rules. And that's available on the website today. There'll be a link in the chat to be able to find it. Or if you just go to the Energy Institute website, and you'll find it on the page under technical information. This, as you know, this webinar is being recorded. So if you know somebody who didn't manage to be able to be here live today, then you can watch the recording on the Energy Institute's YouTube channel. It's also available on the Energy Institute's website. So I'd like to say thank you to everybody involved, Amir, Julie, Andrea. Thank you very much for your time and interest in updates around the wind turbine safety rules and the wind turbine system safety rules and the training. Thank you very much.